Well, it's good to be with all of you here today, and it's good to see so many people here. Today we're going to be privileged to hear from Jeri May Rowley. For 16 years, our speaker, Jeri May Rowley, instructed college courses in small business management, human resource management, and hospitality and tourism. She has received state and national recognition for her success as an educator and as a leader. Since retiring from academics 7 years ago, Jeri May has launched a speaking business and been invited to speak in 25 states, Canada, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Completed coursework on a doctorate of education research, emotional intelligence, and leadership. Published 80 magazine articles. Moved 6 times and lived in 4 states, now central Utah. Served as president of 3 associations, most recently NSA Mountain West, a 4-state professional speaker association in Utah, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Celebrated her 30th wedding anniversary, listen to this, with a 75-mile mule ride in the Bob Marshall Wilderness area of Montana. Now that's pretty good. So I look forward to laughing and learning with you today. Please welcome Jeri May Rowley.
Thank you very much. I'm always interested in how intrigued people are with the 75-mile mule ride. It's easy when you're the rider. The awe should be for the mule that packed me in and out of the Bob Marshall. I grew up in Grangeville, Idaho, so I need a big show of hands of who knows where my hometown is. Okay, 3 hands, 1 up. At break, they're going to tell me why, because there's a reason if you know where my little hometown is. When I was growing up in Idaho, even people who lived there didn't know. So I would say, well, we're 200 miles north of Boise, we're 200 miles south of Coeur d'Alene, and we're 200 miles west of Missoula. And without a doubt, they would say, what are you close to? And I'd start all that over again. So I finally said, we're about ankle. If Idaho is shaped like a cowboy boot, we're about ankle. The moves that I have made have been because of my husband's Forest Service career. We live in central Utah now, and now I say to people, I live about 160 miles south of Salt Lake. I live about 160 miles north and east of St. George. And guess what they ask me? What are you close to? And we start all over. So I haven't decided what body part that would be if Utah was a shape of some kind, but that's where I live now. The nice thing about speaking to you is that you know where my new hometown is. Richfield, I actually live in Annabella. I grew up in Grangeville, Idaho, working as 3rd generation of my family's saddle making business. And since today's presentation is about entrepreneurship, my story needs to start with Generation 1 at the saddle shop. My grandfather became a saddle maker because he had polio as a child. And the paralysis of his legs ensured he wasn't going to be a farmer or a rancher like the rest of the men in his family. So as an elementary school student, he learned to work with leather at the local shoe shop. He apprenticed there. By the time he was in high school, somebody brought in a saddle for him to fix, which meant take this beat-up old saddle apart, lay it out on new leather, assemble the saddle, and make the repair. And he thought, I could be a saddle maker. So after high school, he apprenticed with saddle makers in the western United States and Canada and became a saddle maker in Grangeville, Idaho. There's a picture of the original saddle shop where he was training. The men who are working there have come back from the war, and they're on a military apprenticeship program, learning a trade after they've come back from their work in the military. In college, you guys are all college students, so you can understand this. I saw this really cute guy, so I found out what classes he had, when he went to the cafeteria, everything about him. And I kept showing up in all of those places. Years later, people would ask our children, how did your parents meet? They don't seem to have a lot in common. And my children would look you right in the eye and say, Mommy stalked him. So all those moves that it came in the introduction, the last 6 years, 6 different moves in 4 different states, I'm still trying to keep up with that guy. He keeps moving around. I keep following him around. When my children were small, I decided that what would be a great job for me would be as a teacher. So I got a job working at a community college. This is a joke. I'm really not that old. This is like, I thought this was funny, but I don't like that people think that I'm that old, so I'm going to have to change slides, I guess. At the community college, I was an instructor of hospitality and tourism, human resource management, small business management, started a culinary program, and ran the internship program for the community college. At my first employment at the college, I had 4 part-time jobs until I became a tenure-track faculty member. And one of my coworkers had the same class as I did, and half of his students were failing every semester. Well, I came from a business family where we were dependent on our customers being happy with what we produced, and I couldn't imagine having half of my customers, my student customers, fail every semester. So I said to him, doesn't that make you feel terrible? Half of your students failing every semester? And he says, oh no, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but finish. You can't make him drink. And I said, well, I ride, right? So I know. You can lead a horse to water, and before you lead him to water, you need to make him thirsty. And then what happens? There. So when I started my speaking business after retiring from the community college, I decided to name it Thirsty Minds. I know that I have one. I am interested in lots of different subjects, many, many different subjects. I'm interested in different industries and the people who work in them and the customers who do business with them. And I like to serve people who are thirsty for knowledge. So I named my business Thirsty Minds. One of the classes that I taught at the community college was entrepreneurship. And I always used to joke that entrepreneurship was French for I don't want to work for anybody else. But I always encouraged my students to really think about what were their strengths and what were their stretches, things that they were really good at and things that were challenging for them before they told their old boss where to go and mortgage their house so they could start their business. You really had to have an assessment of what can I do well and what am I going to need to hire somebody else to do because I'm not all that good at it. I knew from my experience as a college student that my experience in accounting classes that I was not going to be my own accountant. I knew that. Back during accounting classes, I remember having this thought bubble that said, I will pay these people whatever they charge me. There are things that I'm really good at in my business, and there are things that I need to have somebody help me do. Technology is one of the things I have somebody else do for me. So I taught at Flathead Valley Community College, and while I was there, I ran a statewide customer service program for the state of Montana's travel and tourism industry, and for 10 years came up with a new customer service curriculum and then trained trainers and did the logistics of getting them out all around the state. I also, for 2 years, got the workforce training department started at the community college where businesses or organizations would call the college and they would ask us for training. And I would either provide the training myself or find the trainer, find the meeting room, get the contract for them to participate in the training. When I decided to retire from the community college and start my business, I really was open to any kind of business. I wasn't sure what it was going to be. But one of the things I've realized since starting this business was that the college training opportunity, being an instructor and working in all these different departments, gave me something that Malcolm Gladwell mentions in his book Outliers. Show of hands of anybody who's read that. Malcolm Gladwell says that the people who really excel, that we think of as being these outliers, they're so much better at what they do than anybody else, they have 10,000 hours of experience doing that thing. For example, there's a lot of talk about Bill Gates, and they'll say, you know, he dropped out of college. Well, and when I read Malcolm Gladwell's book, I found out that before Bill Gates even entered college, he had 10,000 hours of programming experience on computers better than the professors at the college had access to. 10,000 hours. And I realized that being in front of a group of students and learning was something that I had actually accumulated, maybe not quite the 10,000 hours, but close to that amount. So as I'm thinking about what I'm going to do for my business, there's entrepreneurship. This is me, my entrepreneurship, me. What kind of an entrepreneur do I want to be? What will work for me? And so one of the things, since my husband keeps moving, what did I need? Location independence. I need to come up with a business model that it doesn't matter where I live. I wanted to have that. I wanted variety because as a human being, routine makes me a crazy person. So I don't want to be in something where I'm doing the exact same thing or even close to the same thing over and over and over again. I want to have variety. So I'm looking for a business that is location independent, and now with the internet that's getting to be more and more, isn't it? Opportunities that are available to us. Variety. I wanted to make at least as much money as I made working at the college, including all the costs of the benefits and things, and money towards my retirement. So I had that as my benchmark. And this was important to start out with this in mind because I'm not in this business as a hobby. I'm in this business as a business. People who go about doing they say they're entrepreneurs or they say they're business people, but they're not in it to make a certain level of income, that's a hobby. And that wasn't what I had in mind. If I'm going to do something and not make money, I'm going to be the most amazing community volunteer my little town or my little county or my state or my country has ever experienced. But if I'm choosing to be an entrepreneur, and that was the choice I was making, then I want to be sure that I'm making the income. And then I like to be a winner. I like to do well at what I do. So my other criteria was achievement. I wanted to feel like I was accomplishing something, that I was doing well, that I was getting recognition. You're probably wondering, how's that going for me? That's my first year. So I'm not getting a lot of recognition from other people, but within my own organization of one, things are going really well. This year, what possibly can there be for me? What achievement can I have? And here I am, right with you guys here today. So as I think about what would I like to share with you today about entrepreneurship, since that's your subject that the students are studying and that the business people live and breathe 24/7, I keep going back to that saddle shop and the lessons that I learned there and how fundamental they've been in my success in anything that I've done. Goes back to how well grounded my family created just a really great childhood for me and a great opportunity to be a learner and to grow and to be supported. So this is a picture of my grandfather actually after he retired, but my childhood memory of him is sitting in the saddle shop, tooling away. Tap, 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 tap. Just that exact image. And I have images of him with more hair and darker hair, and then as the decades go by, less hair and more gray. But he's tap, 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 tap. And I used to like to go hang out with him in the back of the saddle shop. I liked to because I adored him, and because the customers would come in from their farms and their ranches to talk to him, and I could hear their stories, and I could hear his stories. Tap, tap, tap. Well, one of the things that I noticed was that customers would come into the store, and my grandfather never quit working. So he was able to make his customers feel welcome, valued, appreciated, that he was interested in them, and he kept tooling on those saddles. When I asked him one day about that, and he said, well, if I had stopped to talk every time somebody came back here to talk to me, I'd still be on saddle number 1 instead of saddle number 1,000 and whatever he was on at that time. That was a good lesson, wasn't it? I need to connect, and I need to be constantly producing. What can I do to be constantly producing? Well, when those customers would leave, my grandfather would say to me, he didn't look up. He's still tooling, right? He's still working away. And he'd say, Jeri May, aren't we lucky? We're so lucky. Tap, 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 tap. Those people work so hard, and they work for so little, and they choose to do business with us. Aren't we lucky? So my sense of what a customer was comes from those conversations, that mantra that I heard over and over again of how fortunate we were when customers made the choice to do business with us. And I know that that's made an impact on how I deliver service as an employee or now as someone who's an entrepreneur, that profound appreciation of a customer choosing to do business with me. Have you experienced, as a customer, an organization where you didn't feel like they were all that glad that you came in? Yeah. Well, you wouldn't at the saddle shop. And it wouldn't matter how you were dressed or where you were from or how much you made or even what time you came in. It could be minutes before closing. You would still have that sense of appreciation. I asked my grandfather, once I realized that he had become a world-famous saddle maker. I realized this when we started going to trade shows. And he was like walking in with a rock star. Now, my grandfather had polio as a child. He could walk, but he had this funny, awkward gait. So when he came into a room, people spotted him because of his stride. And I would hear all around me, Rayholes, Rayholes, Rayholes. Everybody was so excited that the saddle maker had arrived. So I realized at a pretty young age that I was with somebody pretty special, not just to me, but to cowboys around the country. And I asked him one day, well, what will I be? And he pointed at this picture that one of our customers had drawn. This is Lee Rice, who is a saddle maker, who wrote the book, They Saddled the West, and who gave my grandfather the title, The Saddle Maker, Saddle Maker. Lee was also an artist. And we used this picture with our company slogan, which was, reach for the best. So I said to my grandpa, what am I going to be? And he's still tooling away. And he says, it doesn't really matter what you are or what you do. You can do whatever you want to do. But you need to always reach for the best. That if you end your work day, whatever business you choose to go into or whatever occupation you choose to have, if you finish your day and reflect back on it with a true evaluation, I did the very best I could, that's a pretty good way to end your day, isn't it? My grandfather got out of high school, decided to become a saddle maker, did all those apprenticeships, got married to my grandmother, started the saddle shop, started my dad. He's on the way. And then the Great Depression starts. Just in time for the Great Depression. Decades later, I'm hanging out in the saddle shop. He has a prosperous business, but he never forgot what it was like to start a business as a man with paralysis in a small town in Idaho with not very many people as customers during the Great Depression. And it impacted how he did business always in terms of choosing whether to expend money or not. And then, of course, that valuing those customers when they did choose to do business with us. Well, I decided to retire from the community college and launch my speaking business just in time for what? The Great Recession. Okay. Well, I'm sure glad I had Grandpa's lesson, because what he taught me was there are going to be peaks and valleys in the economy throughout your life. You better plan on it. And he just happened to start at a really deep valley that lasted a decade. We're talking, you remember how upset we got as a nation when unemployment got to double digits? They were 25 and 30% unemployment throughout the country. That was the Great Depression. My grandfather said, yeah, there are going to be these valleys in the economy, but there's always a bounce back up. So your job in any business is to be ready for this, for the decline, but also you have to make yourself be thinking about getting ready for the rebound. What am I going to do when things rebound? What can I do to make myself really attractive to my customers when the economy rebounds? What am I going to do to make myself stand out among my competitors when that rebound happens? And he told me tales of, and later when I took an econ class in college, I found out he was right. About every 7 to 10 years, there's some sort of an economic flux that gets us all excited. Unless you started your business during the Great Depression and you're planning on it, and you know that if you can survive the downturn, and a lot of your competition won't, when the upturn, the rebound comes, and it will, you're going to be ready to be even more successful. This is Generation 2. This is my dad. He takes over the saddle shop when I'm in junior high. And guess what? He's learned from his dad, so he's there tooling away. And he said, he also doesn't look up when I come back to talk to him. And one day, after I got out of college and went back to work for my family's business, a competitor moved into town. He's a whitewater raft company. My hometown's near the Salmon River, the river of no return. And this guy's one of the first commercial rafting companies that's going to take tourists on the river of no return. That's kind of a marketing feat, isn't it? And we all thought he was nuts. And I was raised by rednecks, those cowboys. The outfitter was a hippie. And this is true, named Frog. That was his name. So I know from my business management classes that I need to be very tuned into my competition. I go over to see this new retail store that he's opened up, and he's going to sell his whitewater raft trips out of the retail store and then sell outdoor gear to his customers. Well, what I found out was that outfitters and guides and cowboys stores sell about the same things. Wool socks, long johns, rain gear, hats, right? So I come marching back to my dad where he's tooling, and I say, Dad, I just went to see what that outfitter's doing in that new store, and guess what? He's carrying the same things as us. How dare he? That was my attitude. My dad's tooling away, and he says to me, Jeri May, do whatever you can to help them be successful. What? I just got my degree in business management, and what did my business instructors tell me about the competition? Destroy them. Find out, industrial espionage would be okay. Just destroy your competition. That's what you needed to do. And here's this cowboy telling me, do whatever you can to help them be successful. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, we live in a little town. Our customers leave their homes, they leave their farms, they leave their ranches. They can choose to come into our little town and do business, or they can choose to go to the city, about 75 miles away, the biggest community. I want them to choose to come to our town. The more businesses there are that are successful in our town, the more likely they are to come to our town. Now, you go do whatever you can to help them be successful. Well, I'm obedient, so off I marched to find out how I could help my new competitor be successful. One of the first things that we organized was a style show where my customers were new Western gear that was coming out that winter, and his customers were the new outdoor gear, and we had a wonderful event. They became successful. Successful enough that 3 years later, his wife could order a custom-made saddle from my dad. And we went on a family vacation on the river of no return. And I had high hopes for leaving my little sister there, but she came back. So I just finished a term as president of an association of my competitors. 4 states of people who are in the same business that I am in, getting together and helping each other be successful. Putting to work that lesson that my dad taught me and that I want to share with you today. I have had so much of my success, I can backtrack and tell you, came from what my competition said about me, because they said good things. And if your competition says good things about you, what do your customers think, or your potential customers think? She must be something. Right? We help each other out. Instead of worrying about what slice of the pie we're going to get, we're focused on how could we grow that pie and make it even better. And I thank my dad for that lesson continuously. This is Generation 2's craftsmanship. Do you think he reaches for his best every day? That's my dad's tooling. So one of the things that I do is I call it backtracking. I have a business. It's not a big business. We found out how many employees we have, right? Moi, 1. It's a small business. I employ myself, and I have a lot of contractors that I do business with who do special services for me. But I can backtrack and tell you the speaking engagements I have in the month of September. If we sat down with my calendar, I can tell you why I have each one of those. I can backtrack to the person who heard me speak somewhere else years ago or in another venue, and they just happen to be on a committee now, and they are the organizers, or one of my competitors said something nice about me. I can backtrack and tell you how I have today's business based on that. I keep track of that. It's getting easier now with social media, but I've always kept track of who came to my presentations, who recommended me to future engagements. So one of the questions that I was asked to talk about today was, how do you market a business that's location independent, one person show? And I know when I interviewed some of you as you were coming in, there were artists here and others who were probably going to be one-person organizations. So how do you market? So the backtracking I've already talked about. I go where they gather. So if I know a target market that I want, I go where they're already gathering. When I was working at the community college and I needed people to be advisors for my new human resource management program that I was developing, I went to where human resource managers were already gathering at the Human Resource Management Association. And they became my advisory group. When I was changing the curriculum for the tourism program, I went to where the tourism people already gathered, and that's where I got my advisory board for that particular curriculum. And because my idea of networking is, what can I do for you, they were glad that I showed up, because it was, what can I as an individual do, what can the college do for you. So go where they gather. One of my commitments when I started my business was that I would be easy to do business with. So when somebody calls and they ask me to be their speaker, I want for the organizer to be the easiest speaker they've ever done business with. That's my goal. I am not 100% successful at it, being the human being that I am, but my commitment is to be easy to do business with. I say thank you. I do things to show appreciation for those people who recommended me. I have the website and the business cards, and they're more people have already heard about me, and then they come to my website and get more information. It's not they're discovering me there, although I've had 2 engagements in the last year that come from magazine articles that I've written being published on the internet, and then part of what you ask for is to have your website in the article, and then they're coming back to me that way. I invest a lot in my own professional development. I didn't want to be the professor who read off of old yellowed pages and gave the same lecture that they had 20 years before. When I was an instructor, I wanted everything to be fresh and current and looking to the future, and I want the same with the work that I do now. Look at these bullet statements. Can you believe you're in college and you're being told, you should answer the phone? But I get work because other people don't respond to their voicemails. I get work because when I do answer the phone, I'm ready to do business. I have the information ready, and tap, 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 tap. I feel so lucky that they've called me. So thankful. And they sense that, don't they? Answer the emails. I told you I wrote the articles. Networking to me is not showing up somewhere looking for a way that you can make contacts that are going to help you out. Networking my way is showing up looking for what I can do for anybody that I come into contact with in that room. Can I help them make a connection? Can I help them with a resource? Is there some service that I could provide? And I want to send that energy out. Because guess what? That's very attractive, isn't it? If you show up for networking and you're just looking out for what can be for you, you're like a salesperson on commission. That's the energy that you send out. And if they're smart, they stay away from you because you're not going with a spirit of generosity. I do use social media, and I'm really glad because my college students, who I assured that if they just pay attention in my class, someday they would use it to gain promotions in the organizations that they went to, they're getting promoted. And now they're in positions where they can hire, guess what? A speaker. And they're hiring me. And guess where my college students are finding me? Because I've been moving around, remember? They're finding me through social media. So I've become a big fan of social media. In Louisiana, when a merchant finishes a transaction, they throw something in. Like, are you familiar with a baker's dozen? Get a dozen donuts, and then the baker throws one more donut in. That the 13th donut is the baker's dozen. In Louisiana, the gift, the thing that gets thrown in, is called lanyap. Lanyap. And I know I say that like a girl from the Salmon River of Idaho and not with a good Cajun sound, but lanyap. I like that idea of generosity. What can I give? What can I do? What can I offer beyond what I'm doing? I have what I think is the strangest little gift. I started thinking, what could I give to everybody who comes to one of my training? Because when I worked at the saddle shop, we used to throw in like boot polish, or we'd have balloons for the kids, or something, or calendars at the first of the year. We'd have something that we gave and were able to give away at every transaction. Not to make the deal, not to up the ante, but just to say what? Oh, I am so thankful that you came in and chose to do business with us today. So I started giving away these little happy guy finger puppets. And lots of times when I'm doing customer service training, and we'll talk about endorphins and the positive energy. So these are like little endorphin generator happy guys. Well, I've started giving them away when I first started speaking, and even though I speak about generosity and I learned that lesson so well when I was a kid, I was giving one away. Like, you get one and you get one. And then I was in South Dakota speaking for the 3rd year in a row, and I'm red hot in South Dakota. They like me there. And somebody said, they sent me this picture that they had got the endorphin that I had given them, the little happy guy, and they had left it for a waitress. And I thought, oh, I like that idea. So I'm going to have to give them some more. And then a waitress told me she was really glad they'd invited me back to speak again this year, because she had lost her one that I gave her last year, and she always kept hers in her pocket. And when she had a particularly obnoxious customer, she said, I just squeeze his head. Now, that wasn't exactly the lesson that I had intended, but, I guess it worked for her. Anyway, she'd lost her happy guy, and so she needed one back. So I've started giving away handsful of these guys. Well, my husband thinks they're silly, and he says, how old are the people that you train anyway? And I said, well, they're grown-ups, but we like to have fun. When I unpack, they inevitably fall out somewhere in our house. So he has started finding them and then flicking them at me. And I say, that's not the lesson of the happy guy. And he says, well, it makes me happy. And one day I was speaking for National Guard in Montana. These are the group of people who help the families when the Guard members are deployed. And I'm doing training for them, and I get ready to give my little happy guy away. And fortunately, this story happens after I realize I need to give them out by the fistful. Because this woman said to me, this officer, I already have one. And I said, have you been my participant before in training? I don't remember you. And she said, no, but before I was deployed for Iraq for a year, my son came in that night before I left and said, Mom, you're going to miss my smiling face while you're gone. So take this little guy with you. That's me smiling back at you. So her little happy guy went all the way to Iraq and back, and she pulled him out of her pocket to show me that day. And I told my husband, see, these are powerful. They're not silly at all. It turns out he'd been my participant in customer service training 2 weeks before her deployment, when I had learned the lesson of generosity once again in my life and said, be sure to take a handful. And you all will when you leave today, right? And you're to have one that you keep for yourself, because you need to take good care of yourself. That's an important lesson in entrepreneurship. First, take care of yourself, and then you're going to have more that you can offer to others. But then I want you to be a donor as well. Find people who you can share it with. one of the lessons that I learned at the saddle shop was about attitude, that especially as an entrepreneur, especially as a solopreneur, it's up to you to keep your own attitude positive. Because there's not a whole crew, there's not a whole department in charge of helping you stay positive. Well, I'd already learned this lesson from one of our customers at the saddle shop. He was a sheep herder. Now, is that a high status job in our United States of America, sheep herder? He'd sign orders with us, poor spelling, poor grammar, kind of a sheepy smell to the stationery, little sheep dung too. We decipher his letters. Do we appreciate his business? We're so lucky. This guy only makes a few $100s a month, and he's choosing to do business with us. We're so lucky. So I decipher his letter, get to the bottom, and he always had initials at the end of his name, like a dentist is DDS and a veterinarian is DVM. So I asked him, when we were on the phone one day, I said, what does those stand for, those 3 letters? And he says, oh, I'm a damn good sheep herder. Well, what attitude had this person chosen? Right? Not to be just a whatever his job is. And I think every day he reaches for the best. He wants to be the best DG sheep herder that you could ever meet. Well, I hope that the lessons that I shared with you today help you be DG, entrepreneurs, or whatever path that you choose in your life. And I've been told that you like to ask questions. And I'm a former college teacher, so I respond to this. And I will call on you, and I'll be happy to answer your question. And by the way, stretches, it's just like an auction, sold. Yeah. The hardest thing, I'll tell you, this is going to sound like a strange challenge, but I'm one of 2 incomes in our household. And if you're the only income, you're hungry and you work really hard. For the first 2 weeks of being an entrepreneur who wasn't dependent on her own income yet, I went antiquing a lot in the new town we just moved to. And I thought to myself, this is not good. You're spending money that you haven't made, and you're not focused on making your business. So it was probably only really a week, but I thought I have to set specific times. I have to make a plan for each day and each week and each month, and I have to really stick to that plan, or I'm going to waste time. And I need to work hard to gain momentum. And boy, I'm glad I did, because I had just gained momentum in this business, started getting the referrals, started getting the reputation when the downturn hit. And if I was trying to start in 2008, that it would have been a lot harder job to get the business started. I might have been successful, but I might have had a harder time. So, not hungry enough. You have to self-attitude check and self-discipline. And it's a whole different kind of self-discipline than I ever had being a really good employee for other people. Yep. If I had to redo everything again, like since birth or just business? Okay, since business. Yes, I would take meticulous record of every person I ever had contact with. I would be very much more careful about that. I have a good record of who hired me and the decision makers on the committees that hired me, but I don't have a good record of everyone who I've come into contact with. And now with social media, I could do that pretty easily, couldn't I? And I wish, and I do now do a better job, but I wish I would have right from the start. Even when it was just an Excel spreadsheet, I wish I would have done a better job because it's gold. Those contact names are gold. Your list is gold. Good question. Yeah. Okay, well let's do September. You're my kickoff for September. And then next week I'm in Billings, Montana, and doing another 2 different presentations, one on marketing and one on change for a human resource management group. Remember those people that I said, how could I help you? They're still hiring me. And then I go to Salt Lake City and do a 2.5-day leadership retreat. And they've been recommended by people who'd hired me before. Then I speak for government procurement group on emotional intelligence. And then I do another human resource management group on onboarding, bringing new employees into your organization. And then I have a couple of webinars I'm doing for organizations. And that's something new for me. And what did we learn about Jeri May today in technology? Not her happy place. You're my happy place. Talking to you today, that's a good thing for me. The technology is something I'm going to have to work pretty hard to get my 10,000 hours of experience, so I feel like I just rock as a webinar presenter. But I am committed to doing that. I am committed to reaching for my best when I deliver online and hopefully whenever I deliver live as well. Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you my starting rate. What I did was I priced myself as what the college was charging at that time, and at that time it was $500 for a half day, and I think it was $800 for a full day of training, and this is a decade ago. And so what I thought was, I know that people are paying that price because that's what they're contracting through the college to get me or people like me at that rate. By the way, if I had a contact that came because of the college, I contracted through the college for that work. Do you see what I mean? I only had that business because they knew me through the college, so I worked on a percentage of what the college got for those jobs. If I got something that was all on my own, that contact, then I gave myself the whole rate. And then what I did was, remember, I'm Employee of the Year, so I just give myself a raise each year. Yeah. And then I've also separated out my pricing dependent on nonprofit 501c3s. Get Jeri May at a different rate than for-profit organizations. Unless I look at your 501c3 documents and find out that the president of your nonprofit makes 100 times more than the president of the United States, then I get kind of cranky. But so I have that pricing structure. Let's see. And then I give one for every 9 presentations that I do that I get paid for, I give one away to a nonprofit that serves human beings. I like riding my mules, but I'm not I want to put my energy into helping humans. Let's just say that. So, and there's plenty of them out there that I can that I don't advertise that. So thanks for asking. But that's part of my give back that I do.
Those are excellent questions. We're out of time.
Oh.
Unfortunately. So what I want to do is have you any last thoughts and tell them what they need to do as soon as we're done here with that Linyape.
Oh, the Lanyap.
Linyap.
So I think I have enough for, based on my count of this room, I have enough for 4 each. And if you hang around and if there's still some left after everybody's got 4, then you are welcome to get more.
That's a lot of little happy guys. Let's give her a big hand.